Hi, Susan from Susan's Art and Junk Journaling. I've been wanting to do another painting. While we were in England visiting the coast in Cromer, I took this photo. I've printed it up on copy white paper just so that I've got a reference when I'm doing the painting. This canvas I'm reusing, there's a moth flying around in here. Got it. I'm reusing this canvas. And the last time I did drywall mudding in the house, I had some leftover mud and I covered some canvases. So I did that here, but I've done that before and it kind of turned out to be a disastrous result. But because it was for Halloween or for October or fall, I liked the result. I had done the same background on this canvas and I wanted to make a border around it. So I took my painter's tape and I did painter's tape around the edge. Then I did my painting of the pumpkin. When it came time to pull the painter's tape off, because this was drywall mud, this white background here, it pulled my paint off. And at first I was devastated and I was like, oh, I can't believe I did that. I was so disappointed. But then after I thought about it for a little bit, for a Halloween-ish, fall-ish painting, I really ended up liking how distressed and ragged and aged this looked. With this, I don't want to have the same mistake happen again when I do this painting. Well, for one, I'm not going to have a border. I'm just going to paint all the way around the edge. But when I paint, I don't want to have a problem with this drywall mud. I've got gesso in this jar. I've got a huge tub of it I got during a Black Friday sale at Michael's. I just put a little bit in here. I've noticed on a different subject, when we've gotten 5-gallon buckets of drywall mud that's already prepared, if I kept dipping into that drywall mud over the months, there tends to be mold that wants to grow on the surface. With it's probably only a 1/2 gallon size of gesso, I didn't want the same thing happening. I ended up putting just a little bit in this jar. So if it decides to go moldy on me, I'm not going to be too worried about losing just this little itty bitty jar amount. But so far it's stayed nice and not gotten moldy. What I'm going to do is just coat the background of this canvas in cross-hatching style, like an X and back and forth. I'm going to cover the entire surface of the painting and let that dry before I start my beach scene. I'm going to try this time. I've been analyzing my painting technique, and it has to do with, of course, my technique above all and how I do it, but it also has something to do with the type of paints I buy. And because I no longer have a painting business where I teach people and I have an income coming in from teaching these classes, I don't buy a lot of paints anymore. So the paints that I have on hand are what I'm using to do my paintings. And, I do believe they've kind of gone off a little bit. They're not, I think the heat when we lived in Arizona, like when I shined an infrared thermometer on the outside wall of our home in Sun Lakes, Arizona. It was 165 degrees. So my paints were stored in an unair conditioned area in our house. There's a storage room and there's also our garage. So I'm sure the temperatures were consistently well over 100 degrees, 125 degrees, 150 degrees. So those paints degraded. When we ended up moving back here to Illinois, I ended up getting some cardboard boxes, lined them with plastic bags, and all my bad paint, I just squeezed the acrylic paints, not oil paints. I squeezed into this bag-lined box and let them all dry because a lot of them had gone bad. So the ones that I felt were worth bringing back to Illinois, well, probably in hindsight wasn't the best idea because they're not so great either. So I've been using those same paints doing my paintings, you know, throughout the winter and throughout the summer. I ended up buying some paints from Michael's, I believe it was, Artist Loft Paints. I don't like them. They're not the best, but I'm going to make do with what I've got. So I've got this set, and then this set's just a little bit different. If you look at the colors, they're similar, but they're a little bit different. So this is Master's Touch. This is Artist's Loft. And then I've also got these, they're supposed to be color shift acrylic paints, but they don't. So, you know, I've got all of these I'm going to use. And like I was saying, I was analyzing how I've been painting. And in my mind, I think I've been using too much paint on my brushes. And that's why, you know, my paintings end up looking very cartoonish. Like here's one of my old paintings that I did. Let's see. This one I did, it says April. And let's see, I did this one, April as well. I was happy with this one, but I want to try and do something different with this one. And I'm going to concentrate on using more of a drier brush to see if I can get the result that I'm looking for. And that's going to be my attempt with this painting. I'm just getting the gesso on. Once it dries, I'll start my painting. What I liked about the reference picture that I'm using, the one that I took when we were in Cromer, I love the mood of the clouds. They looked, it did end up raining for us, but I was safely in the car. During that time, I was wearing my 4th soft cast in a walking boot, and I was instructed that I wasn't to get it wet. So each time that it did rain, I really wasn't in too much peril with my walking boot and my soft cast. So I'm going to show you the reference painting again that I've got gesso all over me. What I enjoyed about this scene in my mind was the moodiness of these clouds. Of course, I'm not a realistic painter, so mine aren't going to look exactly like this, but I'm just going to use it as a reference. And since this is not the Mediterranean, the waters are more of a dark greenish blue, and then a muddier deep blue in the back. Now this looks yellow, but all these spots that look yellow here, those are seashells. So I'm going to make this more beige versus yellow. I don't think I'm going to be painting these huts here. A little side note, if you didn't see our sister channel where I talked about these, my sister-in-law said that the people buy these huts for 60,000 pounds each. So that's about 75,000 American dollars. And I think these are, I saw one woman sitting in one, so she was sitting upright in the corner and her legs went about that far. So I'm gonna say these are maybe 6-7 feet wide by maybe 8 foot long, and they paid about $75,000 for them. So again, I don't know that I'm going to paint those in there, even though it would be nice. But I like the colors here, the deep green, and then the yellowish, brownish beige here. I'm just going to try and capture the mood of this. I've got my chalk in hand. I've got a green piece. It's a little bit darker than the white background. This is what I use to do my drawings, because when you use it, can you see that green there? All you have to do is just use a wet washcloth, wet paper towel to remove it. Now I'm going to decide exactly where I want my horizon line. Here it looks like it's a little bit more, let's see, is it a third? Yeah, it's a little bit more than a third, but I want to concentrate more on the clouds because I'm a cloud person and this beach isn't really that fantastic. So versus me making my horizon line at this point, I think I'm going to come down to here and make that my horizon line. And I'm not going to make the same mistake as last time and use tape as my line. Maybe go down a little lower. I'm just going to make the line with my ruler. I'm worried that if I put the masking tape on or the painter's tape on, then it's just going to pull everything off. So I'm going to use this as my reference. It's not showing up very well, and look at it. It's pulling off the gesso. Oh my gosh. You know, I might have to just abandon this project, but let me just try one more time. Maybe just try a pencil, see if that'll work. That's better. I've got my horizon line chosen, and let's see, how do I want to do the angle? Okay, so for here in this section, it looks like it goes from this point to about the halfway mark there. But I don't want to do that here because I made this smaller. So I'm going to have my beach line go more down to here to be more of the angle that I want it to be at. So I think I will start maybe here and kind of do a wavy beach there. So that will be the water. And this, let's see, that's water. And then let's see, shall I do this as the grass? So water, beach, grass, moody sky. So let's see how that turned out. Let's see. Do I like that angle? I can always adjust it, right? but that's a good start. I've got this upside down, so I'm going to turn this upside down. I want to do a base coat on the back of here in this soft blue. The two colors I'm going to try are these color shifting colors, but they don't color shift. There always comes a time when you do a painting where you go, oh my gosh, this is just absolutely horrible. But this is just basic background. What I want to work on is this moody cloud right here. And I've taken colors and I've made mine a little bit darker, but that's okay because I want it to be a little bit more moody. So I'm I've done a lot of back and forth and adding here, adding there, changing this brush. And I'm finally getting to the point of what I'm kind of liking. I want to make this a little bit darker down here. And the way that I was doing that is this brush is really frayed and splayed from use. So I'm going to pounce along the bottom here with my darker color. These have been taking so long, these are starting to dry. But I'm going to I'm going to work on this darker color along here, and then I'm going to get lighter as I go down. So I'm going to do dark along here and then slowly get a little bit lighter. I added a little bit of brown to this green that I mixed. So let me pounce this a little bit and get my brush loaded up with this dark color. let's see how I can do making grass strokes. Thank you for sticking with me while I struggled with this one. I keep trying to improve my painting ability each time I do a new one. I appreciate it if you could subscribe to my channel if you haven't already, and if you are a subscriber, I appreciate you 100%. Thank you. P.S. I forgot to do the waves. You're supposed to view your art from gallery distance, which is 6 foot away. How's that? Does it get any better the closer I get? Off camera, I tried to save this painting because I really didn't like how it turned out. I added a little bit more beige grass down here in the corner. I made the waves a little bit bolder with a little bit more white paint. I changed the background down here, and I certainly didn't like how the clouds turned out. I just ended up taking a sponge and sponging the same background color as this all over to try and soften it. Now I'll just look at it for a couple of days and decide if I like it or not. But thanks again for watching.